IELTS bite.
Have you ever sat in a meeting, or maybe at a family dinner, and someone says something that you just completely disagree with?
Oh, absolutely. Your heart starts to beat a little faster. You get that warm feeling in your hands.
Right. You know they're wrong, and you actually have the facts, but instead of speaking up, you just nod your head, smile, and say absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I've been there so many times. And why do we do that? We do it because disagreeing in our native language is scary enough. But disagreeing in a second language, that can feel just terrifying.
It really can. So, welcome to our conversation today. We are just so glad you're here sitting with us.
It's a very familiar feeling, right? That fear of conflict or just the fear of not having the right words at the exact right moment.
Exactly. And we want to welcome you, the listener. You are an equal participant in this conversation today. We're going to explore the psychology of communication and how you can speak English with profound confidence, especially in those really difficult moments.
But, before we tackle the complex world of debate and persuasion, we need to warm up.
Yeah, we need to build a little bridge between your brain and your mouth. And that really starts with your daily routine. Building a 10-minute morning speaking habit is honestly the absolute best way to maintain steady progress over time.
It really is. The brain needs a transition period because when you wake up, your brain is functioning entirely in your native language.
Right, of course.
So if you want to speak English confidently later in the day, you have to turn that English part of your brain on early. Just 10 minutes of speaking out loud to yourself can completely change your fluency.
So we're going to do that right now. We want you, wherever you're listening, to speak out loud in the room you're in.
And remember, it does not matter if you make a mistake. No one is judging you.
Not at all. I'll ask you a question and I want you to answer it out loud. So what time do you usually wake up? Take 3 seconds and say your answer out loud right now.
We'll give you a second.
Okay, notice how that felt in your mouth. For example, I usually wake up at 6:30 in the morning.
Really? 6:30. I am definitely not a morning person, so I usually hit the snooze button on my alarm clock at least twice. I'm up by 7:30 if I'm lucky.
Hitting the snooze button is such a universal experience. Let's build on that. I have another question for you listening at home.
Yeah.
What is the very first thing you drink in the morning? Describe it out loud.
Go ahead, say it out loud.
For me, it's a strong cup of black coffee. I literally need it before I can even form a sentence.
See, I'm the complete opposite. For me, it's a very large glass of cold water. I find it just wakes my brain up faster than caffeine.
That's probably much healthier.
Yeah.
But think about what we just did. If you do this every single morning, just describing your routine, what you're wearing, what you're eating, out loud for 10 minutes, you stop translating in your head.
Right. Your English becomes a physical reflex.
And you really need that quick reflex for what we're discussing today. Disagreeing, debating, and persuading. Because these are high-stakes situations.
They are. But our mission today is to show you that you can master the art of strategic debate without fighting. You don't need to be aggressive to win an argument.
No, not at all. You just need to communicate beautifully.
I love that concept, communicating beautifully during a disagreement.
But to do that, we have to understand the ground rules. And the rules actually change depending on where you are in the world.
Oh, definitely. Which brings us to the foundation of polite disagreement, direct versus indirect communication cultures.
This is a fascinating psychological divide. English is the global language of business and travel. So that means you're often speaking English with people from entirely different cultural backgrounds.
Right. And in some cultures, being direct is considered the highest form of respect. It's seen as honest and efficient.
Think about cultures in Northern Europe, like Germany or the Netherlands or even the United States. In these places, if a project is failing, the respectful thing to do is just say, this project is failing.
Exactly. If you try to hide it with soft words, they might actually think you're being dishonest or manipulative.
They value the pure, unfiltered truth. But there is a completely different way to view the world. In indirect cultures like Japan, India, or many parts of Latin America, preserving harmony is the ultimate goal.
Right. Giving direct negative information isn't seen as honest there. It's seen as cruel or aggressive and highly impolite.
So let's pause and think about your own background listening at home. How would you describe the culture you grew up in? Do you think it's a direct culture or an indirect culture? Say direct or indirect out loud.
Take a guess.
Whichever word you just said, keep it in mind. because intense workplace conflict usually happens when a direct communicator and an indirect communicator have to solve a problem together.
Oh, it's a classic clash. The direct person thinks the indirect person is hiding the truth, and the indirect person thinks the direct person is just a bully.
To navigate this, linguists talk about something called the cooperative principle. When we speak, there are unwritten rules we follow to cooperate. We try to be informative, truthful, relevant, and clear.
But, there's a catch. Sometimes being 100% truthful and 100% clear actually destroys cooperation.
Yes, it really does.
Right.
If your colleague gives a terrible presentation and you follow the rule of ultimate truth and clarity, you might say, your presentation was incredibly boring and confusing.
Well, you were truthful and you were clear, but you probably just ruined your working relationship forever.
Exactly. This is why we also have politeness maxims. A maxim is just a guiding rule. We have to balance truth with tact.
Tact is a wonderful word. It means having the sensitivity to know what to say to avoid offending someone.
Think back to a time when someone was completely honest with you, but they had absolutely no tact. How did it make you feel? Try to remember that specific feeling for 5 seconds.
Just think about that memory.
It usually feels like a physical punch to the stomach, right?
Yeah.
We want to avoid making other people feel that way.
So how do we soften our English? How do we show tact? The secret lies in a specific type of grammar called modal verbs.
Modal verbs. These are words like can, could, should, would, may, and might. They are essentially the diplomats of the English language.
I love calling them diplomats because they change the emotional tone of a sentence without changing the core meaning.
Exactly. Imagine your coworker hands you a document and you notice a mistake. If you use a direct command, you would say, check the report again.
And that is a direct order. It implies a hierarchy, like you're the boss.
Yeah.
The person receiving that command might get really defensive.
But if we add a modal verb, we can completely transform the feeling. Instead, you can say, you might want to check the report again.
Let's examine why that's so powerful. You might want to give the other person a choice. It respects their autonomy. You're not forcing them, you're just offering a gentle suggestion.
The psychological pressure is completely removed. I want you, listening, to practice the rhythm of that phrase. The tone should be warm and helpful. Try saying it out loud right now. You might want to check the report again.
Give it a try.
Notice how the pitch of your voice naturally goes up a little bit at the end. It really softens the blow.
But wait, I have a question about this. If I'm constantly using soft phrases like you might want to, won't people think I lack confidence? Like, if I know for a fact the report is wrong, why am I acting like it's just a suggestion?
That is a very valid pushback. Softening your language is not about acting insecure. It's about preserving the other person's dignity so they can actually hear your message.
So it's strategic.
Yes. If you attack them, their brain's defense mechanism turns on and they just stop listening to your facts. If you soften the delivery, they remain open to what you're saying.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a strategic choice, not a weakness.
Yeah.
So let's try another tool for softening our language. We call these hedges.
Think of a hedge like the shock absorbers on a car. When a car hits a hole in the road, the shock absorbers make the bump feel soft.
Right. In conversation, hedges absorb the impact of strong statements. Hedges are words like seem, suggest, a little, or perhaps.
If you look at someone's idea and say, this is wrong, you've hit a very hard bump. The conversation just stops.
But if you say, this seems a little wrong, the hedge words seems and a little turn that brick wall into an open door.
We have an activity for you. I'm going to give you a very direct, hard sentence. This is a bad idea. I want you to act as the shock absorber. Add the word seems and the phrase a little to soften it. Take 5 seconds, think about the structure, and say the new sentence out loud.
You got this.
If you said, this seems like a little bit of a bad idea, or this idea seems a little bad, you did it perfectly. You are learning to navigate difficult moments with grace.
But all of this advice, modals and hedges, is relatively easy when you're talking to a friend or a peer. The dynamic completely changes when the person you disagree with has power over you.
Oh, absolutely. What happens when you need to disagree with your boss, or an older family member, or a professor?
That is where the real stress begins. Because when you disagree with an authority figure, your brain often perceives it as a literal threat.
Yes, your body actually releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Your palms might start to sweat, and your breathing gets really shallow.
Because your body feels like it's in a fight. But a professional disagreement is not a fight.
Yeah.
You're not trying to destroy your opponent.
No, you're playing a strategic game where the goal is to keep everyone's integrity intact. And integrity here means their professional pride and dignity.
So how do we handle this power dynamic? The most effective strategy actually happens before the disagreement even starts. You have to establish a process for feedback early on.
Exactly. When you first start working with someone in power, you can have a calm conversation about communication styles. You can say to your boss, "We might not always see eye to eye. How do you want me to share my opinion if it differs from yours?"
What a brilliant, mature question. It shows immense professionalism. It basically asks the boss for an invitation to disagree in the future.
Let's practice that phrase because it feels great to say and it's so useful. Repeat this out loud. How do you want me to share my opinion?
Try it now.
Once you have that agreement, you have a safe foundation. But even with that foundation, in the heat of the moment, the stress hormone will still hit you.
Oh, it always does. So your absolute first priority in a disagreement is to manage your physical body.
You cannot project confidence if you are visibly panicking, and you certainly can't speak clear English if you're out of breath.
So before you say a single word, you must take a deliberate, deep breath and consciously slow down your speaking pace.
Let's do a physical reset right now together. I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it for just a second, and let it out completely. How does your body feel right now? Say one word out loud to describe it.
Tell us how you feel.
Usually that one single breath lowers your heart rate just enough to let the logical part of your brain take control again.
And when logic is in control, we can use one of the most powerful tricks in persuasion, stripping away the adjectives.
Adjectives are words that describe nouns. Words like foolish, naive, hasty, terrible, brilliant.
And in an argument, adjectives are incredibly dangerous because they carry heavy emotional baggage.
Let's look at an example. Imagine your boss wants to launch a new product immediately, but you think the market isn't ready, and launching now will cause the company to lose money.
If you use loaded adjectives, you might say, launching this product right now is a hasty and foolish idea.
Think about the psychology of that sentence. You just called your boss's brainchild foolish. You've attacked their judgment.
Yeah, their immediate reaction will be to defend their ego, not to analyze your business advice.
Instead, you must strip away all the adjectives and focus entirely on neutral facts. You could say, our competitor just released a similar product. If we wait, we may have a clearer picture of the market.
That is beautiful. No insults, no loaded words. You presented a neutral fact, the competitor's release, and a logical possibility, having a clearer picture.
You focused entirely on the problem, keeping the person completely separate.
Let's see if you remember this critical rule, listener. In a tense disagreement, what specific type of words should you try to avoid using? Take 3 seconds and say the answer out loud.
What are those describing words called?
Did you say adjectives? Or maybe emotional words? That is correct. Stick to the neutral facts.
But wait, I have to ask, what if the boss is just, stubbornly making a mistake? Do we just present facts and let them fail? How do we push back firmly but respectfully?
That's where you have to acknowledge the hierarchy while still maintaining your own voice. You can say, I know you'll make the final call, but here is my perspective.
I love that phrase so much. I know you'll make the final call. It disarms them completely. It basically says, I'm not trying to steal your power. I'm just offering you data.
Exactly. Let's have you practice that empowering phrase. Say it out loud with a calm, neutral voice. I know you will make the final call.
Take your time.
Excellent. Now, you are calm, you're neutral, and you are respectful.
But there is another major hurdle for language learners. Even when you are completely calm, organizing your thoughts in a second language during a debate is incredibly difficult.
Yes, the cognitive load is massive. You're trying to remember vocabulary, check your grammar, analyze the boss's reaction, and formulate an argument all at the exact same time.
Right. And when the brain is overwhelmed like that, people tend to ramble.
Rambling means you just keep talking and talking, making long, complicated sentences, hoping that eventually the other person will understand your point. You just lose your focus.
Have you ever found yourself rambling in English? Just talking in circles because you felt nervous. Think about that for a few seconds.
I know, I definitely have.
It is such a universal experience for language learners. To prevent rambling, we need to give the brain a very rigid, simple structure to follow. We use a system called the PRP method. That's P-R-E-P.
The PRBP method is like a roadmap. If you follow the roadmap, you will never get lost. It stands for point, reason, example, point.
Let's explore exactly how this works.
First, you state your point. You keep it as short and clear as possible. Next, you give the reason why you believe that point.
Then, and this is crucial, you give a specific example to ground your reason in reality.
And finally, you restate your point to close the loop.
Let's do a serious workplace example. Imagine we're discussing the company's budget, and I think we need to spend more money on employee training. Listen to how I use the 4 steps.
Okay, I'll play along. What is your point?
We must prioritize funding for employee training this quarter.
What is your reason?
Because upskilling our current team is far more cost-effective than hiring new external consultants.
Do you have an example?
Yes, last year, when we invested in software training for the design team, our project delivery speed increased by 20%, saving us thousands of dollars.
Therefore, what is your final point?
Therefore, our primary investment right now must be internal training.
Wow, that was incredibly compelling. Because you use structure, I didn't have to work hard to understand your logic. I could follow you perfectly.
Let's lock this structure into memory for our listener. What do the 4 letters in the PREP method stand for? Say them out loud, one by one.
What's the P? Then the R.
You should have said point, reason, example, point. Now let's practice doing it. We will guide you through a very simple, low-stress argument. Imagine you are arguing that reading books is better than watching movies.
Okay, what is your point? State your point out loud in one short sentence.
Just few words.
Now, give a reason. Say, because, and add your reason out loud.
Good. Now give a quick example. Say, for example, and share a specific detail.
Give you a few seconds.
Finally, wrap it up. Restate your point, say, therefore, and repeat your main idea.
Fantastic. If you use that structure, you will sound incredibly articulate, even in your second language.
But, formulating your own argument is really only 50% of persuasion. The other 50% is listening.
And unfortunately, most people are terrible listeners during an argument.
Yes, they are. When we argue, we usually engage in what psychologists call listening to reply. We hear the other person speaking, but we are actually processing their words.
Right. We're just waiting for them to stop breathing so we can launch our next attack.
Exactly. If you want to actually persuade someone, you must practice listening to understand. You have to prove to the other person that their thoughts are entering your brain.
And you can do this by using clarifying phrases before you make your own point.
For example, before you disagree, you could say, let me make sure I've understood your point correctly. And then you briefly summarize what they just said.
Or if they say something very broad or vague, you can invite them to speak more. You can say, could you elaborate on this point?
Elaborate is a fantastic piece of vocabulary. It means to develop an idea further or to add more detail.
Let's practice that word. I want you to repeat the word elaborate out loud and then tell yourself what it means in simple English.
Give it a try.
Yes, elaborate means to give more details. Asking someone to elaborate does 2 really important things. First, it flatters them because you're showing genuine interest in their mind.
And second, it buys you time to think and regulate your own stress.
Exactly. So now we have the foundation. We are calm, we are polite, we are structured, and we are listening.
This prepares us for the truly advanced persuasion mindsets. These are the strategies used by the best debaters and negotiators in the entire world.
What's really fascinating about these advanced strategies is that they're not aggressive at all. They don't rely on shouting or dominating.
No, they rely on supreme cooperation. The first advanced strategy goes back thousands of years to ancient Greece. It's called the Socratic method, named after the philosopher Socrates.
Socrates was famous for wandering around Athens and engaging in debates, but he rarely told people they were wrong.
Right. If someone made a claim, Socrates would simply ask them a series of probing questions.
The psychology here is brilliant, because when you tell someone you are wrong, their ego immediately puts up a wall. But when you ask a question, their brain automatically tries to answer it. You completely bypass their ego.
You start with broad principles that you both agree on, and then you ask specific questions that reveal the contradiction in their argument. Let's look at a modern example.
Okay, imagine someone says, we should ban all cars from the city center to stop pollution.
If you disagree, you don't attack the idea directly. You ask a Socratic question. You might ask, we both agree that we want a healthy city center, right? Do we agree that a healthy city needs successful local businesses?
They will almost certainly say yes. Then you ask your next question. If we ban all cars, how will delivery trucks bring heavy supplies to those local businesses?
You are leading them to discover the flaw in their own logic. People are infinitely more likely to change their minds if they feel they discovered the answer themselves, rather than being lectured to.
Let's test this skill with our listener. Imagine someone says, We should stop giving homework to children entirely. Think of one polite, curious question you could ask to challenge that idea without attacking it. Take 5 seconds and say your question out loud.
What could you ask?
You might have asked something like, how will students practice what they learned if they don't review it at home?
That is the Socratic method in action. Say the name of that method out loud so you remember it.
Just the 2 words.
Another masterful technique is called the steel man. Now, you may have heard of a logical fallacy called the straw man.
Yes, the straw man is when you take your opponent's argument, exaggerate it, make it look really weak and silly, and then defeat it. It's intellectually lazy.
The steel man is the exact opposite. It's an act of deep intellectual generosity. Before you argue against someone, you take their argument and you reconstruct it in the strongest, most compelling, most charitable way possible.
You make their argument as strong as steel.
Let's return to the debate about banning cars in the city. If I'm using the steel man technique, I'll say to my opponent, so if I understand you correctly, the strongest version of your argument is that banning cars will reduce child asthma rates by 40%. Which is a critical public health emergency that outweighs commercial concerns.
Wow. If you said that to me and I was your opponent, I would be amazed. I would think, they actually understand me. They might even understand my argument better than I do.
Exactly. And why do we do this? We do it to build immense, unbreakable trust. When your opponent hears you validate the best version of their idea, their defenses just drop entirely.
They realize you aren't an enemy trying to destroy them. You're a partner trying to find the truth.
Let's do a comprehension check. Why do we use the steel man technique in a debate? Take a few seconds and explain the reason out loud.
Why do we do it?
We use it to build trust and show profound respect.
I want to practice the phrase that initiates the steel man. It's a great transition phrase. Repeat after me. If I understand correctly, your strongest argument is.
Try saying it out loud.
Building on that atmosphere of trust, we have the strategy of concession and rebuttal. To concede means to yield, or to admit that the other person is correct about a specific point.
Now, a lot of people think that conceding a point makes them look weak, as if they are losing the argument. But in reality, it makes you look incredibly objective and reasonable.
You give a little ground in order to gain a lot of credibility. You look your opponent in the eye and say, you are absolutely right about the cost factor. That is a valid concern.
You validate their intelligence. But then you immediately pivot. You transition back to your own stronger argument.
The pivot is where the magic happens. The classic pivot phrase is, I see your point, but. You give them the concession, and then you follow up with the rebuttal.
This is a phrase that requires muscle memory. When you are stressed, it should just roll right off your tongue. Let's practice it. I want you to say, I see your point, but 3 times out loud right now.
Go ahead, 3 times.
Fantastic. So we've built a solid toolkit of diplomatic, polite, and cooperative strategies. We know how to build trust. But I have a very serious question. What if the person we're talking to is not playing fair?
That is the dark side of debate. Sometimes people use arguments that sound very convincing, but they're actually built on mental tricks and flawed reasoning.
This is a crucial survival skill, especially when you're operating in a second language where it is so easy to get overwhelmed by fast talkers. You need to protect your mind from bad arguments.
In philosophy, we call these bad arguments logical fallacies. A fallacy is simply an error in logic or reasoning.
When you learn to identify these fallacies, they lose their power over you. You stop feeling anxious because you can actually see the trick. Let's learn a few of the most common ones.
First, I want you to say the term out loud. Say, logical fallacy.
Just to get used to the words.
The first, and perhaps most common fallacy, is confusing. Correlation with causation.
This is a fundamental flaw in human psychology. Our brains are hardwired to look for patterns. If 2 things happen at the same time, our brain automatically assumes that one thing caused the other.
Right. They are correlated, meaning they happen together, but they are not causative.
Yeah.
To illustrate this, statisticians love to point out absurd correlations.
Yes, my favorite one. For example, during the summer months, the sales of ice cream increased dramatically. And during those exact same summer months, the number of shark attacks in the ocean also increases.
The 2 data points rise at the exact same time. They correlate perfectly.
But let me ask you, the listener, if I eat a large bowl of ice cream and then walk into the ocean, did my ice cream cause the shark to attack me? Say yes or no out loud.
Say it out loud.
Of course not. That is absurd. There is a hidden third variable, the hot weather.
Exactly. Hot weather causes more people to buy ice cream, and it also causes more people to swim in the ocean, which statistically increases the chance of shark attacks.
Another famous, ridiculous example is from a study showing that the divorce rate in the state of Maine decreases at the exact same rate as the consumption of margarine.
So if a couple wants to save their marriage, should they just stop eating margarine? No, it's purely a mathematical coincidence.
So, how does this happen in real life? Imagine a colleague says, "Our company's profits went down the exact same month we hired John as the new manager. Therefore, John is destroying the company."
If you understand the fallacy, you don't panic. You ask, wait, is it causation or just correlation? Did John cause the profits to drop, or did the entire global economy crash that same month?
The next fallacy that creates a lot of unnecessary anxiety is the slippery slope. This is a fear-based argument.
It happens when someone claims that one small, harmless action will inevitably trigger a massive chain reaction leading to an extreme disaster.
The human brain loves the slippery slope when it's anxious. You see this constantly in parenting and in politics. A parent might say, if we let our teenager stay out until 11 o'clock tonight, next they will want to stay out until midnight. Then they will start hanging out with criminals, and eventually they will end up in prison.
Notice the massive jump in logic there. It goes straight from a slightly later curfew to a lifetime in prison. It completely ignores all the hundreds of small, manageable steps in between.
Have you ever caught your own brain thinking in a slippery slope when you were stressed? Say yes or no out loud.
I know I have.
We all do it. But when someone uses it in a debate, it's a fallacy. You have to recognize it and calmly bring them back to the present moment.
Another very manipulative trick is the false dichotomy. A dichotomy is a division of something into two distinct parts.
A false dichotomy is when someone presents a situation as having only two possible options, pretending they are the only choices, when in reality, a wide spectrum of options exists.
Let's practice that vocabulary word. The prefix "day" means two. Saying the word dichotomy out loud right now.
Try saying it, dichotomy.
You hear false dichotomies in movies all the time. The villain looks at the hero and says, "You are either with us or you are against us."
But wait, what if I'm neutral? What if I agree with your goals but disagree with your methods? There are infinite options, but the speaker is trying to trap you into a corner.
In a business meeting, someone might say, "We either cut everyone's salary or the company will go completely bankrupt next month."
That is a false dichotomy designed to create panic. You can push back and say, those are not the only two choices. What if we reduce our marketing spend? What if we sell a piece of real estate? Do not let someone lock you in a box of two choices.
Now what about when an argument gets nasty? That brings us to the ad hominem attack. Ad hominem is Latin for "to the person."
This happens when someone completely abandons the logical debate and attacks your personal character instead.
Imagine we're having a serious debate about renewable energy policy. I present data about solar panels. Instead of challenging my data, my opponent says, "Well, you don't know anything about energy. You are just an uneducated, naive fool who dresses badly."
It feels terrible, but strategically, it's actually a sign of victory. If someone attacks your character, it means they have run out of logical counter-arguments, they have lost the debate, and they are just lashing out emotionally.
Is it ever polite or professional to attack a person's character in a debate? Say yes or no out loud.
Definitely not, no. It destroys the cooperative principle we talked about earlier.
We also need to watch out for the red herring. I just love this name.
It is a strange name. A red herring is a smelly fish. Historically, people would drag a smelly fish across a path to distract hunting dogs and make them lose the scent of their target.
In a debate, a red herring is a piece of irrelevant information thrown into the conversation to distract everyone from the main topic.
For example, if a politician is asked why taxes are so high, and they answer, well, what is really important is that we support our local sports teams because sports bring the community together.
Wait, I'm a bit confused here. How is a red herring different from the straw man we talked about earlier? Aren't they both just distractions?
That is a great clarifying question. A straw man is when they twist or exaggerate your specific argument to make you look silly. A red herring is when they completely change the subject to something totally unrelated to avoid answering a difficult question.
Ah, I see. A straw man misrepresents the topic. A red herring abandons the topic entirely.
Exactly. And the last fallacy we will touch on is called begging the question, which is a form of circular logic. This is when an argument's premise assumes the truth of the conclusion instead of supporting it.
For example, someone says, "This software is the best on the market because it is superior to all other software."
They just said the exact same thing twice using different words. They provided no evidence, just a circle of words.
So now that we are armed with this knowledge, how do we actively defend ourselves? You spot a false dichotomy or a slippery slope. What is the tactical move you make to respond?
This is the final stage of our journey today. Refuting and responding strategically. Once you spot the logical error, you have to counter it gracefully.
The most foundational defense is evidence-based argumentation. In a world completely overflowing with opinions and emotions, verified facts are your anchor.
Never allow someone to state an unverified opinion as if it were a proven fact. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle laid out a framework for this called the rhetorical triangle.
He said that to truly persuade an audience, you need a balance of 3 elements: ethos, pathos, and logos.
Let's define those simply. Ethos is your credibility. It's why people should trust you. Pathos is the emotional connection you make with the listener. And logos is the pure logic, the data, the evidence behind your claim.
I'm going to quiz your memory right now, listener. Which of those 3 ancient words means logic and evidence? Ethos, pathos, or logos? Say your answer out loud.
Think about what it sounds like.
Did you say logos? You can hear the word logic inside of it. If an argument lacks logos, you have the right to politely ask for it. You can say, that is a very strong claim. Could you share the data or the source behind that?
Another incredibly sharp strategic move is the use of counterexamples. This is how you defeat people who speak in absolute terms.
Some people love to use words like always, never, everyone, or impossible. They claim universal truths. The government should never, ever regulate private business.
When someone claims an absolute rule, you do not need to build a massive philosophical argument to defeat them. You only need one single undeniable exception.
One tiny crack in their absolute rule shatters the whole thing.
So if they say the government should never regulate business, you don't argue economics, you just ask, what about child labor laws? Or safety regulations that stop factories from putting poison in the food?
Everyone universally agrees that those regulations should exist. With one simple counterexample, you prove that the issue is complex, not an absolute black and white rule.
Let's do a mental exercise. Think about a strict rule you have in your own life, maybe a diet or a rule about spending money. Can you think of one exception where it is okay to break that rule? Think about it for 5 seconds.
Just one exception.
Recognizing exceptions makes us more nuanced thinkers. Now, what do we do when someone throws a red herring at us, when they bring up a point that is true, but completely irrelevant to the problem we are trying to solve?
You use the tactical power of the phrase, so what? Now, we have to be very careful here. If you yell, so what? You sound aggressive and dismissive.
Yes, the tone is everything. You must say it with genuine, polite curiosity. You are gently forcing them to draw the connection between their distraction and the main goal.
You might say, I agree that our competitor changed their logo colors, but how is that relevant to our current budget crisis? You're asking, so what does this have to do with our problem?
Let's practice the tone. I want you to say, so what, out loud, but make it sound as polite, curious, and gentle as possible. Try it now.
Keep it soft.
By asking for relevance, you guide the train back onto the tracks. And this leads to our final and perhaps most effective strategic move, demanding specific explanations.
This relies on a psychological phenomenon called the illusion of explanatory depth. Most people think they understand complex issues much better than they actually do. They complain loudly in vague, abstract terms.
Someone might sit in a meeting and complain, our entire marketing strategy is completely broken and we need to start over from scratch.
If you try to argue with that vague emotion, you will get nowhere. Instead, you let them talk. You give them the floor.
You lean in, make eye contact, and say, that is an interesting concern. How exactly do you think a new strategy would work in practice? Walk me through the steps.
When you force someone to explain the specific, step-by-step details of their grand complaint, they usually freeze. They realize they don't actually know the answer. The illusion shatters.
They reveal the gaps in their own logic, and you didn't have to raise your voice or argue a single point. You just asked for specifics.
This is such a powerful tool. Let's practice asking this question. Repeat after me with a calm, inviting tone. How exactly would this work?
Try saying it now.
It places the responsibility back on them to be constructive instead of just complaining. And truly, that brings us full circle on our journey today.
We have covered a monumental amount of information today. We started by exploring the cultural divide between direct and indirect communication and how to use modals and hedges as shock absorbers.
We talked about the physical reality of disagreeing with power, taking a deep breath to manage our cortisol, establishing a process early, and stripping away emotional adjectives to keep things neutral.
We learned how to give our brain a roadmap using the PRP method so we don't ramble when we speak English. We practiced the Socratic method of asking questions to bypass the ego.
We discovered the immense trust-building power of the steelman technique and the grace of the concession and rebuttal pivot.
And we learned how to guard our minds against logical fallacies, the slippery slope, the false dichotomy, the ad hominem, and how to gently dismantle them with counterexamples and requests for specific details.
This is a robust toolkit for becoming a master communicator in your second language. But remember the promise from the very beginning of our conversation. This knowledge only transforms your life if you put it into physical practice.
Yes, the 10-minute daily habit. We want you to commit to practicing these structures, these polite phrases, out loud every single day.
Let's solidify that commitment right now.
Yeah.
Make a promise to yourself out loud. Say, I will practice for 10 minutes.
Say it out loud.
We believe you. Every time you speak out loud, you are building the neurological pathways that create fluency.
As we bring our time together to a close, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We've spent an hour dissecting the mechanics of debate, refuting arguments, and learning how to persuade people. But what is the ultimate goal of all these tactics?
It's a question worth asking. Because mastering debate is not actually about winning. It's not about dominating a room, making someone else look foolish, or proving that your intellect is superior.
If you use these tools just to win, you will eventually find yourself very lonely. True persuasion, at its deepest level, is about the shared pursuit of truth.
It requires immense humility. It's the recognition that despite all our logic, we might be the ones who are wrong. And if we are right, it requires the grace to help the other person see a new perspective without feeling defeated.
It's about building a bridge between two different minds. When you can communicate beautifully, especially in moments of deep disagreement, you do more than just solve a problem. You forge a genuine human connection.
Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation today. Your presence makes this experience richer. Keep speaking, keep questioning, and keep building those bridges. We will talk to you next time.